Hey folks, Steve here with another Case Yellow 19.4 video. This will be the beginning of the actual playthrough, and we'll be looking at turn 1 in this video. If I manage to do things very quickly, maybe we could include turn 2, but I'm just going to guess as I'm recording this segment. It's going to be turn 1 only, so maybe we'll hit a turn per video. It could get to the point later in the series where, as I often do, I start playing a little more quickly. The game is really firmly set in my mind, and you guys are really just interested in the outcome rather than just the mechanical step through of all the play action, right? So, as usual for a Dark Series game, the first couple of turns tend to be the most, I guess, slow or the most intimidating to start. I swear it's like this every time. To just get started feels like it's such a big event and you're apprehensive about it because you don't want to do something wrong. Now, other games of the series tend to have on turn 1 blah blah blah, and you have to be careful of it. There are rules like that here. Fortunately, I think we can take it step by step in the action round computation, I guess, to ensure that we've got everything that we need accomplished. So really, when we're talking about turn 1 of scenario 1, I should say, we should have a pretty straightforward setup here. So on turn 1, both the Allied and the German player have 4 action rounds. So they use all 4 of their action chits. I do want to make sure I'm using the right action chits here. So the ones with the red text, I believe, are the right ones. Yes, the red letter move action. There are different ones that are a little more like the Germans, where you can move or do combat, that are for one of the other scenarios. So if you watch my intro video again, there's some tactical advantage to the Germans that when they get their action chits pulled, they can choose movement or combat. The Allies have to play what it says on the counter. There's no difference on either side of the action chit. But in other scenarios where the Allies are given a buff to have a real fight of it, they potentially have the ability to make the same decision. So we're stuck with that as it is. Couple of things that I want to note. This is really for the Allies, and we'll cover it when it's their movement action. But many of the units here that are on the map and how they're set up have stars on them. So you can see this French corps have 2 black stars. What that is denoting is that those units cannot move during the movement phases of the turn. They are effectively restricted. Now, there are other units on the board. Let's see if I can find a good example over here somewhere. I have to be careful that I don't accidentally lose where these guys were originally placed when I pick them up. Here is a French motorized division with 2 red stars. That means for both of the movement chits of the Allies, they must move into the Dyle plan area and get as close to the Dyle plan as they can effectively. Or I should say, here's the Dyle plan line, I believe, is where they need to get to. And then there are a handful of units, and again, I'll be careful where I'm picking these guys up from. Oh, that's not one. My bad. One with these stars, yellow stars, that denote that these units need to try to move into Antwerp, with all of their movement. So there's a certain degree, again, this being the solitaire game doesn't necessarily matter, that the orders are the orders. The Allies had set up to advance to the Dyle plan line, to Antwerpen for some of their units. Many of the British units that are off on the left side of your screen, those have the 2 red stars, which means they do have to move as east as possible to the Dyle plan with all of their movement in both movement phases. So when we get to the actual Allied movement, we're going to have to be really careful to look at, okay, what is this unit on the board? What kind of star marker does it have that's going to dictate what it can do in the beginning of the game? Over time, those rules will kind of fall off and will have more freedom of movement. But likewise, there are going to be things that govern the blind spot area. So this is denoted roughly, you can't really see it. I could zoom in and see if it gets any bit better. You can kind of see there's this shaded dotted line, and this encompasses the Ardennes region more or less, and is denoting effectively the blind spot that the Allies must avoid moving units into. They really don't have very many options to deal with, and these cavalry units are going to get nuked pretty quickly as the Germans would seek to come through here, right? Now, for the German restrictions, there's a few things we do have to keep in mind. We do have to keep some units down here on the Maginot Line stuff. We are going to have to be cautious of garrisoning any areas like Netherlands and Belgium that we do take. So that's going to drive a lot of our decision making. The very first chit of the game is chosen by the Germans, and I was trying to think through like what actually makes sense to do here on turn one. We have a number of the air assets available. We have units that we call in from reserves, though I don't think we'd want to do that right away. And we have a chit, and we get to orient it how we wish. Again, combat on the one side, movement on the other. So we get to pick, as the Germans, what do we want to do? Now, I think the answer is obvious. I think we have to move. There's no reason to do any combat, really, in my opinion, because you have all these guys here that are not adjacent to anyone, right? They can't really do much in the way of attacking, and whatever attacking they do is going to limit where they can get to. Some units can do movement on a combat roll, I think, but it's very minimal. So I think I would rather have full movement and see how far we get. So I think the Germans are going to elect to do movement. I think the ideal cadence of what happens is the Germans get movement in a combat, then the Allies get a chit, and then the Germans get movement in a combat. And if they can do that, they may very well have cracked the Allies sufficiently enough that they're in a really good game position to exploit out of the Ardennes. But that's the fun of the chit pool, that you don't know it's going to work out that way, and both sides are just going to have to deal with what they get. If the Allies get a lot of their chits early, that might help them in the short term, but if the Germans get the last couple of chits, they can basically perform some really strong actions that could keep the Allies from being able to respond effectively. So, the fog of war there is going to be how that goes. Now, by a special turn one thing, we're going to have the German airborne operation. So, very, very generally, if I look at, let's see if I can find the right player aid sheet. We're going to be doing, I don't seem to have a very good sequence of play, unless I'm just not seeing it on the player aid sheet, and I'm blind as a bat. And it could be that's the case. I am not seeing, maybe it's on the back of the, it's on the back of the rule book. Fair enough, or back of the playbook, rather. So the very first thing we do in a turn is the air phase. So there would be an Operation Dynamo Royal Air Force segment, which doesn't apply because we're not dealing with Operation Dynamo. There's then an air asset availability segment. Well, the Allies have a French air unit available this turn, and then the Germans have multiple Stuka air assets here. And then Allied crossing interdiction. I don't think they can do that this turn. I have to look at it. Let's see. I suppose it's possible that the Allies might get to do it. My only concern is I'm not sure. Well, there's already one there. Let's see. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean that. I thought I was ready to rock and roll, but as I look at the situation, I have to make sure I do this right. Because if the Allies have a chance to do something, um, they may want to. They may still want to do that. It seems like the Allies could. They could actually try to do that. Now, here's the rub when we talk about interdiction. Um, there's a chance that when they do the die roll, uh, that if they succeed or fail, they actually lose the air unit. So I'm not even sure that it makes sense for them to do it. If they even can. Again, they have one air unit. It's the only one they're going to get this turn, and they could use it up very easily. Half the results cause it to be eliminated. So maybe we just don't use it yet. I think that's maybe the better choice. We can figure out a better way to use the air asset later than to do one of these now. But boy, it just seems like, if you could try to do it, you might want to. And because there's already one set up, which I think is really interesting, it could slow down the Germans. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take some time and think through this before we get started. And then we'll talk about the German Fallschirmjägers, the paratroopers, because that will be the next segment as well. Okay, so I think as the Allies, we're just going to go ahead and say they do not try to do any crossing interdiction yet, because what could happen, that 50% chance of losing the air unit would be a major problem for the next several turns, where we wouldn't get really any air right away, or very limited air, and we would just be out for 3 turns of the air unit. So at least for now, I mean, we'll certainly look to do crossing interdiction later, but I think we want to maintain the plane to be able to do a combat support somewhere. Now, the thing is, I couldn't tell in the rules specifically, but it seems like when you use an asset to affect a combat, like that's its use for the whole turn, and it goes on the turn track to be used the next turn. So while there are air assets, like you're not using them all over the map, and it doesn't seem like you're going to use them a lot. Um, I can't tell if the air assets can be used like once per round or once per turn. It seems like it's once per turn. But if somebody who's played this game before has clarity on that and can let me know, please do so. I will continue to read what I can in the rules and online as we go for this. Before we execute the German move action, though, we still have other things to do. One of those is placing refugee markers, which I have done. We get to place 3. I chose here in Eindhoven in the city, here in Breda as a town, and one up here in Den Haag on the city. Some of this is almost purely, well, and maybe there's a better place for this. Now that I think I might want to put it in Utrecht instead. Yeah. So the reason why we're doing that, technically the German airborne happens first, so we could correct the refugee placement. This is supposed to occur before the German move action. Technically, in the sequence of play, it is the German airborne. But I just want to set them up to kind of figure out, like, where do I want these to go? And what these things do is it makes the hexes around that marker, in many cases, cost uh, an extra movement point to enter, so it might limit the ability for the allies or other forces to move into that space and cause some sort of log jam type of scenarios. Now, it's for me, it's really difficult to figure out, like, well, where is a good place to put this. I could put them in Belgium, but I almost I almost don't care if they go into Belgium because I'm going to kind of go through there anyway. It doesn't make sense. And these are only going to be around for really a turn before I can move them again. So I think my attempt here is to try to make it so that these guys can't retreat through here as easy to try to protect Don Hog. This so that it's a little bit harder for allied units to try to stop me holding Breda and Eindhoven, to again just kind of make it more difficult for these guys to maneuver around here until the Germans can get to them and pin them and take them out or overrun them or whatever. Now, I truly don't know if any of these are good placements. It's odd, right? Like these are non-military. This is just impediments. There are other mechanics like this in some of the other series games in the Dark series, Deadly series, but it's really hard for me to just determine like what's a good move. Similarly, when we look at the sequence of play and we go to what it is that we're trying to operate now, which in the sequence of play is the German paradrop segment, where is a good place to put the German paratroopers? Well, I have chosen these 4 locations here, 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 and here for a couple of reasons. One, I want to ensure that as the Netherlands units want to fall back, they're going to run into impediments. And then wherever the Germans are breaking through the Netherlands line, wherever the paratroopers are, particularly around these bridges, you can see the river crossings here, here, here. There's some here. I mean, they're all kind of all over the place. When you have a Fallschirmjäger, a paratrooper unit there is an implied bridgehead marker on those sides of the opposite side of the bridge. So there are markers that denote a bridgehead. So they're right here. You can, there's ways to create these bridgeheads. What they can be used to do is negate the defensive river bonus, because it's basically a way to represent that some small amount of troops have seized the other side of the river, and so you negate the defensive bonus of the river and movement and things like that. So the paratroopers, being in the positions that I'm looking to put them here, 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 and here, are at a variety of different crossings of the rivers, the river system in the Netherlands, so that assuming they survive where they're at, as the Germans come through here, the rest of the German forces, they will not have to worry about these river crossings as much. Those critical points will be easier for the Germans to traverse and get past. And it also causes, just again, more traffic jams where these Netherlands units don't have many places that they can go to maneuver to try to protect Den Haag or Rotterdam. So again, is this the right move, the best move? I don't really know. I've not done enough decision theory around what's the perfect move here, but I think this will work. Now, there is one special thing. This glider unit has to go with a paratrooper unit. And what ends up happening is we're going to roll on a table if the paratroopers survive or take a loss. And then, depending on how that loss happens for the unit that this glider is with, that will influence the roll for the gliders. The glider's done after all of the paratroopers. Now, these are meant to go in clear town or city hexes. If you go into clear, there's no penalty, but if you go into a defensive line like here, a town like here, defensive line here, and then I think here is actually just clear. It's the safest place for me to go. There is a slight penalty. So on 6s, the paratroopers are eliminated or hurt. If you add the penalties for the defensive works in towns, then it's like a 5 or a 6. If the paratrooper is eliminated here that the glider is trying to follow, then the glider will have like a +3 to their die roll, which means it's very likely the glider will fail. So rather than take a huge risk and try to drop directly on a city, which has a pretty bad penalty, I want to make sure the gliders get down because they're at least a whole division, rather than a small, forget the level of echelon these troopers are, but this is the safest, so it's most likely that these guys will land successfully. They will control the bridgeheads and then, provide some defensive block for the Germans. so that these Netherlands units again are just kind of wound up in their rear position, that these guys are in trouble. Now that's all banking that the Germans can kind of sweep through here and bust our way in to the Netherlands proper. What's interesting is that there is a specific scenario that comes with the game, scenario 4, where you can play just the invasion of the Netherlands on a smaller map. So if you really wanted to, I could have like war gamed this out, the game before the game on a smaller map, and kind of try to figure out how to make all of this work. But we're doing it live, so it doesn't matter. You're not live necessarily, but I'm not doing a huge amount of deep thought analysis on just how to make all this work. I want to get to rolling some dice. So that's the idea. And now we can start rolling the dice for all of this. So if you're looking for the chart, it is, let's see, right here. German airborne landing. You can see 1 through 5 is a successful landing, no loss, and E is a regimental unit eliminated or division loses 1 step. And in this case, the only division is the glider. So if I just go top to bottom, this one, so they are in a town, that's a +1 of the die roll. He is fine. This one also a +1 of the die roll. He is actually eliminated. So we don't get to hold on to that. That's a bummer for the Germans. I'll set him in a dead pile. We'll do here. He is fine. And then here, he is fine, but I rolled a 5, so it's a dang good thing that this was a clear space. And then we are going to roll for the division, and he is also fine with a 5. So we managed to successfully land with our paratroopers, but we did lose this one, which means that that could be a holding spot with the bridges under the control of the Dutch. But in the backfield, we certainly have caused some problems for the Allies there, the Dutch, in that particular area. So now that the now that the German airdrop is complete, we have Stuka dive bombing segment, which means we could potentially use our Stuka bombers really anywhere on the map. So the paratroopers had to go into the Netherlands. These refugee markers had to go into the Netherlands or Belgium. But now with the Stuka segment, we can basically target the rest of the map. So I'm going to think through what makes the most sense for Stuka dive bombing. The whole purpose of that is if we can cause disruptions on units, that will decrease the enemy's movement by 2. If they're disrupted, it also decreases their tactical rating. So when we talk about, do these motorized units have a higher tactical rating? Well, all of a sudden, a bunch of really tough-looking Allied units with high tactical ratings have much lower tactical ratings, which means they can be bypassed. So I need to think through, is it worth using some of our Stukas to do this on this turn? Or do we want to try to do that, use the Stuka for combat modifiers? So I'll have to think on that, and we'll come back and figure out what's what. Okay, so I've decided, and again, I shouldn't have to preface this, but I will. I don't know if these are going to be the optimal moves, but since we're just playing the game, and again, this being a 10-turn game, I don't think it'll take us forever to play through this particular war game. I can make some mistakes, right? And if I ever wanted to replay this, it probably would be pretty easy to get it rolling. I will say setup took a little while because many of these units have exact hex designations, so you do have to grab a unit, look to see where it goes, put it in that very specific spot for the scenario. But anyway, so we really have 6 Luftwaffe counters, and I've placed 3. I have 3 left over, which we'll use for ground supports this turn. 3 might be a lot. I'm not sure. So what my aim is to, as I look at some of these, if I can at least get a disruption that will lower their tactical rating. If I can score where it's feasible in clear terrain. If I can score a 6, it's actually a step loss as well, which means I could wholly eliminate some units, which will create holes, or I reduce the tactical ratings of the units hit such that I can go around them, or they will be easier to move out of the way. So, what I thought I would try to do is hit somebody up here, which is in it is in a defense line, defense work hex, which means I think the best I can do is, yeah, I think the best I can do is, let's see, -1 for defensive works, yeah, is disrupt them, but so maybe it doesn't even make sense to do that, does it? That would make their rating a 1, so maybe I really should, now that I'm looking at it, this seems so silly, maybe I really should do a different one. If I hit somebody in clear, I might be able to eliminate them, so maybe I should do down here instead. Sorry about that. Okay, so here, here, and here down in Belgium, I could target the French, but I think I think I have other options I want to pursue. I don't want to use all of my Stukas, but I do want to make it such that Belgium and the Netherlands fall very quickly if I can, so that they're done. I get the bonus victory points for those areas, and then I can focus on exploiting the French down in the Ardennes, which I should be able to do anyway this turn, even without Stuka bombing people in the forest. The thing is, the forest is a penalty to the die roll, so it doesn't make sense for me to try to hit, guys down in the forest so much, and hitting anybody else that isn't right there on the front line isn't necessarily of value, because they may lose the disruption before it matters. So we're going to be rolling. So we'll start top to bottom. We'll start here with this Dutch unit who is in the clear. And because he has a tactical rating of 2 or less, there's actually a +1 of the die roll. So 5 or 6 will actually destroy him. But I roll a 1. Oh no. Okay, so a +1 is a 2, so no effect. So I don't lose the air asset, but it is done for the turn, and this unit is fine. The next one was here, another clear unit. It is a +1. So I do get a disrupt on this guy. So we'll just mark him as disrupted, and that unit is done. And then we'll finally go here, which is another clear. Would love to get a 6 and just knock out that cavalry unit. And yet I only get a 2, and there's no bonus because the tactical rating for that unit is a 3, is a miss. So this was actually not a very good set of Stuka bomb. I rolled poorly is the thing. I rolled very low on the d6. So the Stukas did not get me very far. That's a bummer. That's a bummer. I don't like that. That's a bummer. Okay, so next we're going to look at, I think everything is done now. I guess if I really wanted to, I could change, because this happens before movement, I could change the refugee placement. I think right now I'm fine with where they're at, but I truly don't know what would be a better option. So we'll leave it at that. So now we actually get to movement. Now, in terms of the actual actions, I want to be clear about what we can or cannot do on a action like this. Let's see if I can find the oh, it's in the rules somewhere. There's a nice little explanation about what the actions are actually like. So when we look at an action phase, for a move action specifically, we can have motorized units during a German move action round. All motorized units, excluding the German ARKO and the 2 attack supply units, may attack. So as long as they're motorized, we do get attacks, assuming they're in, we probably want them to attack while they're in attack supply, but that's anything with red movement factors. So when we look at um, red box movement, so all these guys can move and attack. These guys can move and attack. A couple guys up through here can. Then generally down in the south, not so much. So when we look at what are we going to do, and I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to take a while for me to move everything. The Germans are going to move. We get to move everything, and then at the end of movement, following the guidance of the rule book, we'll take things step by step. We will then do some combats if we think we can line them up. So knowing that we're going to have combats, or that we could have combats, is really going to dictate what movements we make, because if we can line up good attacks and get that combat and then pull another chit and maybe attack again or finish any engagements, which we'll probably talk about at some point soon when it happens, we'll be in good shape. So from here, guys, I'm going to do the German movement. So take stock of where things are at right now. We will see what the state of the board looks like after movement here. And for you, just a second. Okay, so here we are after the German movement is complete. This is prior to any combat, so I won't talk about the combats here in a second. You can see a very general advance. Now, what's interesting, for some reason, I thought I was going to get much farther than I did. I have to remember that a clear hex is 1 movement point cost, and using a road is 1 movement point cost. And really, the only place that they define roads on the map are through the difficult terrain. So at best, your fastest unit, which I'm pretty sure on the game board map would be a 6 for either side. Any given unit is going to, at best, move 6 hexes, but very likely due to terrain or Zox or rivers or whatever, will be probably less than that. So you're really probably talking most of the time on like 4 to 5 hexes. So even when we're like, yes, we're going to charge through the Ardennes, these units that move through these road lines could just get to Bastogne on their first move. The other thing that I did is there are reinforcements that come off of this collection of units that you can bring in. And I decided to start with these 2, 3, 4 divisions, and I brought them up down here so that we basically have a decent line along the Maginot line, so that the French can't get any freebies by trying to move into Germany. That we've got a pretty decent set of units here that will allow us to operate. So I made that choice, and then in the north, up in near Belgium. So there's a thing that I should have talked about earlier. Eben Email, if that's how that's pronounced, starts destroyed. If you play different scenarios, you actually have to roll for it. But the historical scenario assumes that the German paratroopers that capture that fort have done so already before we did anything else. So these guys are moving. What's interesting is how much the river actually does slow things down, because you can cross the river, and assume that you're going to have the river crossing for supply, but it does take the extra movement points, so it's just kind of hard to get very far, is what it felt like. I'm not moving like crazy to get to these places that I want to get to. And so and I think actually, let's see, did I mean to go here? I must have, to block or to be able to come up that way. A lot of units that started way further back are still way behind, because trying to move through forest and then the clear and then to get across the river, even with the bridge, it just takes a lot of movement points. And the very farthest north in the Netherlands, we did move through these defensive works, so they are now destroyed. That is what those markers signify. But even then, we could still only get so far. Like, I didn't even get down this way to start fighting these Dutch units, which is the real shame. Like, I guess I miscalculated how far I wanted to get and where I wanted to go. We did capture Nijmegen, so that is one city of the Dutch down, and we are really on the outskirts of Eindhoven with some units that will likely see some combats here. So a little bit of an oddball start. Now, this is just the movement action. We're going to have other chits that will get to come out and we will get to do more things. I think I'm going to have to decide when the Germans go again, what would I rather do? I can do another movement as the Germans, or I can do combat. The movement will probably help me against the Netherlands to get some guys up and increases the chance that I'll get the victory points for uh, taking out the Netherlands as early as conceivably possible. But that gives me a less uh, space to work with, or less progress to be made against France and I guess Belgium, but really cutting through for my sickle cut that will get to occur. If I choose combat for the next German ship, whenever it comes up, I can clear these guys and then move forward and maybe knock some guys out here, and then I will have gotten maybe over the Meuse past the Ardennes in one turn. That might be more advantageous to me in the long run than just knocking out the Netherlands or doing whatever I can to knock out the Netherlands very, very fast. I still might have, or it might, I still might be in a really good place to take out the Netherlands even doing that. So it's just that interesting thing. Like, what can I do? What am I giving up by doing what I'm doing? So anyway, I want to then hit the last part of the action. So when we look at a movement action round, we place reinforcements, we did movement. Combat, at the completion of all desired movement, resolve all current engaged combat. So we haven't really talked about that. That is something special in this game that is not in future iterations of the series, the informal series, where the combat result can be an engage, which means that maybe there's a step loss, but maybe there's not. But those units are fighting each other, and during the next chit is when that combat is resolved. So we don't actually know what's going to happen. And the more of that there is, probably the slower for the Germans overall. So we'd really like, I think we can, we want to avoid engagements. We do want to either smack the defender or we want to cause them to retreat. We don't want to get bogged down by too many engagements, but we'll see. But there are no engagements here on turn one, so we don't worry about that. Next, we have the motorized combat. So again, during a German move action round, all motorized units, those with the red boxed movement, can conduct combat. Now on turn one, everybody has attack supply, so I don't need to worry about tracing to my attack supply HQs and all that kind of stuff. And I can't use the German ARKO artillery unit for this. It is motorized, but it's an exception because it's artillery. It's not these mobile units. So who can I do that with? Well, I have two cases where combat can occur. I can do it up here, ideally against this Dutch unit, I think, from here to here. And then just double checking, I can also do one here against Liège. And then I have one just to the west of Bastogne on this Belgian mechanized cavalry. And so that's my three combats, I think. I can't attack over here because the armor unit can't attack over the river, I don't think. Or maybe I can, but I don't think it'd be a very good idea. That is a minor river, so I might be able to do it. Let me see. Oh no, I can. I can attack, and it's just a minor river. If I wanted to, I could, but this is actually a pretty strong Belgian unit, so I'm not sure I actually want to do that. It would be a pretty rough combat die roll, I think. If I just try to look at the combat table, I don't think I would come out ahead. It'd be like 1-1, and then you've got the river, which is going to give 1 shift to the left, so 1 to 2. Yeah, I don't think that that's a very good idea. So I think we will stick with here, here, and let's see, here. Nowhere else does it make sense to go. Okay, so if that's our combat, then we want to do our combat procedure. Now it's pretty basic. We're going to do determine strength. We're going to compute the combat odd shifts, and then we're going to roll some dice. So let's take a look at what I have attacking. So it's a little bit distant for you guys, I realize, so I'm not super zoomed in. I could try to make this a little bit easier for you. There we go. So if I'm attacking here, we have a motorized division, and we have, or I'm sorry, an armor division, and we have a motorized regiment with it, and that is 4 combat strength altogether. The defender has just 1 combat strength, so that is, already that's a 4 to 1 to start, and then we start looking at the shifts. So defensive works, defending. Let's see, and that's just clear terrain. Yeah, clear terrain. But the defensive works. So the defensive works is worth 1. Let's see, this is a. Let's see, I can't tell if that's a minor river, major river. I guess that would be. That looks like a minor river to me, but I'm trying to. The thing with this game sometimes, I think, is like you have to really try to understand what the shading is. There's the Rhine River, and then there's all the other darker, thicker rivers that are not the Rhine River, which are major rivers. So this looks like it is a minor river. So a minor river is a shift left if all attackers attack through the minor river hex sides. Shift canceled by a bridgehead. We don't currently have a bridgehead. That would only occur, I believe, at the end of the round, or at least the end of the action. I should double check that. Let's see. Bridgehead crossing during the end phase. Yeah, okay. So we wouldn't necessarily have the bridgehead here. All right, give me a second here, guys. Okay, so I believe it says in the rules for bridgeheads that prior to combat and a move action round, if there are yellow movement points, which both of these are there, and they have at least 1 movement point, which I'm pretty certain they will. Yeah, we have enough. So we're going to roll to create a bridgehead here, and that's going to negate the river bonus. So the actual die roll for bridgehead creation, let's see. Bridgehead attempt occurs during game turn 1. Let's see if I can get this on here for you guys. You can see there. So if it's on turn 1, it's a +3. If we've got a German TR greater than 3, we get it. An allied unit occupies the target hex. Yeah, so altogether, because there's an allied unit and a undestroyed defensive work there, it's a -3. That's negated by the bridgehead attempt occurring on turn 1. And then, let's see, that is a TR4 armor unit. We get a +1. So it's a net +1. So we're going to roll a die. And roll 6. Yeah, so we do get a bridgehead. So the way we would signify that is, oh, I know there's a bridgehead marker here. Okay. We'll say bridgehead. I'll just simply put it there. So what does that do? So we don't have the river shift. Now I'm going so slowly through this for you guys so you see the example of how the game is properly played. But it's going to negate the river. So basically, it's going to be 4-1 shifted for the defensive works to 3-1. And then I think those are I could decide, do I want to use any Stuka units to shift the Dyle, to shift it again. Let's see, for each attacking German panzer division, so that's one, that would be a shift to the right. So that would be back to 4-1. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, if we use the panzer bonus, then we would be a +1. So we are at 4-1. So 4-1, just so you guys can see the combat chart in terms of how this is going to look. If we roll a 1, there's an engaged, then it's retreat, retreat, defender loses 1, defender eliminated. So this is all a pretty safe roll for the Germans, all things considered. So okay, so we rolled a 2, which is a DR. Defender must retreat 2 hexes. If the defender occupies an undestroyed fortified line, retreat is optional, but this is not a fortified line, this is defensive works. Reduced retreat, though, still applies according to let's see here. I will say that this game's got a lot of different aspects where you are having to make some references quite a bit to get things right the first time around. Okay, so he's retreating from a defensive works, so he could ignore a retreat in the second hex if they enter a city. So what's going to happen here is, I'm not sure the bridgehead is needed anymore. He's going to retreat to here, then he can stop. He doesn't need to retreat a second time. And then these guys advance after combat, and I believe they can only advance the 1 hex in this case. Yeah. So we got a retreat. Now it does put those Netherlands units in the city, which is going to be better for them overall, but the German units are unharmed, which is still pretty good. I'll take that. Okay, so next, let's just go down here. We have the battle for Liege. Now this is a major river, and I think the same thing would apply here, where they should have a chance to do a bridgehead. And I believe these guys are able, well, they might not have had enough movement points, actually. 27, well, oh, and I'd only be attacking with him. That would be the problem. 38, 32, oh, 30, 32, sorry, 30, 32. So he would have been here, and he did 1, 2, 3, 4. No, so he could. So we could establish a bridgehead. Doesn't mean we have to attack. So let's figure this out. Bridgehead attempt on turn 1 is +3, +1 for the TR being greater than 3, so that's +4. And I believe there's a defensive work in here, yes. So it is a +1 again. And this time, yes, they still get the bridgehead, so that's important. Put it like so, just so it's easier to see. And then it would be interesting. So we don't worry about the river. It would start at 4-2, which would be 2-1, which is not great. No armor shift is allowed for city. So it would be 2-1, shifted to 1-1 for the city, shifted again for the defensive works. So now we're looking at it went from 2-1 to 1-1 to 1-2. That's not great. And let's see. Well, I guess the alternative then would be, do we use a Stuka? And the Stuka would give us well, we could try to do a whole bunch of air on Liege, but we would be spending out our air. I don't like any of those odds. Those all seem very bad. We could very easily get beat up. So I don't think we're actually going to attack here. I think getting the bridgehead is fine, but we're going to wait and we'll see what happens with that. I think the fact that for some reason I thought I had another unit under here that was motorized, and I don't. So I don't think that is a very good option. So we got the bridgehead because that's done at the end of movement, but after evaluating that situation, I don't think a combat is worthwhile. And then we have this final one here, which is these poor cavalry. Now, I want to double check the special rule. Okay, it's French cavalry that vanish. So these Belgian ones won't vanish as easy, but I think they're going to get squished anyway. So we have this guy. He is purely in just forest terrain. These guys would be attacking through the road, hex side. It's a shift to the left of 1, effectively. So we have a regiment, and we've got 10 points, 10 combat strength from these armor units here. So, I mean, that is 11-1. And we shift 1, so that maxes out on the 6-1 table. We're going to get a shift 1 over for the forest, and then it seems like we still get an armor shift. So we're rolling on the maximum table, it looks like to me. I don't see anything else that applies here. And I don't think the Allies want to use their air unit because it's not going to help. Because I think it's not going to be enough of a change here that will really shift the die roll. So okay, we'll give it a roll. So we rolled a 4. It is defender eliminated. So 1 or more steps lost. I think this is just a 1-step unit. It is. So the Allies lose this, and these guys advance into the hex. So now we are past Bastogne here in the Ardennes, as you can see. Let's pull that back a little bit. So we are safely progressing through the Ardennes at this point. And that is it for the first German chit activation. Woo-wee, guys. It only took us forever to get this far. So the next thing we're going to do is to pull the chit, the next chit, I should say. And we get German again. So, the question: do we do combat or do we do movement? Tricky. My inclination is to say combat, but unfortunately, I can't guarantee that I'm going to have the best attacks that I really want to have happen. And when I look at the rules for a combat shit, during combat action round, we attack with a bunch of guys. We would do engaged results, which we don't have any, and then we conduct individual combat in the orders desired. Right, but no movement. So unfortunately, what this means is, while I would really like to have maybe gotten up to here to be able to attack these French units, it would require another move action. But I gotta think through this, because if we do movement, we could get up to here, and then we have two combats. We would maybe be able to get through here. But if we did movement, say these guys come over here, knock these guys out with a motorized attack, they couldn't attack through the forest here. But the regular combat would at least open up the door in a couple of places. Boy, this is tricky, guys. This is tricky. Well, let me take myself off camera here. I'll make a decision, and then we'll come back when I can actually show you what's going on. Okay, so I really thought that I was going to do move combat and then move combat, but just seeing how many guys were behind the line and needed to move forward and get into position to actually do stuff, I decided to do a move. So you can see there's a couple of places where, we have gotten things situated where we're sort of outflanking the French a little bit down here. This guy's got some Zoc problems. We could potentially get in behind them later, maybe force them off the Maginot line. Now, granted, we don't want to do that too much because it's going to enable the French, if they get pushed back, it'll be easier to try to come back over this way, where we really want to cut them off first. But I figured I might as well get a start while I can. We did move into position so that we have some combats that will occur here at the end of the movement. Here, here, and here. So this should clear some of the screening cavalry coming out of the Ardennes, and then give us basically put us in a pretty good position for turn 2 to get over the Meuse and basically run amok once the allies have gone and moved and done their whole thing. Anyway, still moving some guys up here, and then as we look to the north, which will be a little bit harder for you guys to see, I'll try to zoom in a little bit. We actually move these armor units around to get over here to attack not against the river, and we'll keep the bridgehead for any mop-up that we need to do with the combat shits. The rest of these units starting to get over the major rivers and trying to get into a better position overall. It's kind of weird. Like, I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, can I take out the Netherlands in like one turn? Can I do that? And I just don't see how I can. So the Netherlands will surrender with 6 cities controlled. 3 towns will equal 1 city. So right now we have Nijmegen, which is 1 city. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 4 towns controlled right now. So that's technically another city. We're only a third of the way there. We're really going to need to take almost just about everything somehow. I mean, as I try to look at this, like, okay, Eindhoven's another one, so that would give us 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, there's almost no way, I think, to just get, like, I think you have to take all the cities. I'm trying to figure out if there's some other way around it, but like I think that's just the way it's going to have to be. Oh, I forgot about Maastricht, which is technically Netherlands. So I should put a control marker here so that I don't forget. So technically speaking, we will have, so it'll be 1, 2, 3. So we have 3, and we need 3 more. So we need to get Eindhoven and then Rotterdam and something else, or Utrecht and something else. Okay, so we're halfway there. We're halfway there. For the Belgians, where we need all the Belgian army units eliminated, or we control Antwerpen, Brussels, Ghent, and Ostend. I think we're still pretty far from that. We're only just getting into Liege, which it looks like Liege doesn't even matter. As I look at, okay, so Ostend is way out here, Ghent, Brussels, Antwerpen. So we still have a ways to go before the Belgians truly fall, though they don't have very many units. It may not matter. But we have a pretty good attack on Liege, which should give us the leeway to kind of get out into the flat terrain once we kind of bust through there. So I think we'll be feeling pretty good. And then, as the Allies get set up into the Dyle plan up here, like, we're not going to push all, we may outflank some Netherlands units, but we're going to let the Allies get up onto that line while we penetrate down here. Otherwise, in the north, again, it's just some slight movements to get situated, moving guys over the rivers, getting them into place, even moving the paratroopers a little bit just to get them into a better position, which I believe I can do. I better double check, but I'm reasonably confident I can do that. Yeah, there's a new action round, so they can definitely move. There's not many places for them to go. They don't have a lot of movement, so I can't like sneak into Don Haag right now. Well, I guess what I could do, if I give up, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it does. I don't think it does us any good to grab something and then give up territory, and they could potentially just get it back. So I think we're fine holding there, and it's a good situation. So what we have now, after movement is complete, and I realize this is like a 5-minute segment. I should be speaking faster or not talking as much, and just getting right to things. Now we have the mobile combats again. So we're going to have some combats here on Eindhoven. We're going to have attack on Liege, and we're going to have attacks down here, here, here. So rather than do all the die rolling, which is going to make this video even longer, I'll do it off camera. We'll come back and see the end result of the movement combat. Okay, so this is what I would generally say is a successful set of mobile combats, because we basically did everything we wanted to do, and we only ended up using one Stuka to do it. And so we have taken Eindhoven. We left. We did not advance the regiment units so that we can protect our supply line. We have taken Liege. We pushed them out. And I guess we don't need this bridgehead marker anymore. And then we also eliminated the Belgian cavalry here and advanced. Eliminated the British cavalry and advanced. In this case, we forced, it's a special role for the scenario. It's the vanishing French cavalry. We only got, I think it was like a DL1, or maybe it was a retreat. They actually vanish and they go onto the turn track to come in as reinforcements on turn 5. But it still qualifies us to advance and get into position. So you can see, now that we've done both of our movements, and successfully did the move combats very well, we're actually coming out of the forest now. We're going to be, when it comes time for the next German move on turn 2, we're very likely going to be at the point where we're crossing through into the flat terrain, or at least very nearly doing so, while the French are still struggling to do anything, right? Because they haven't gotten a go. So this is just all punishment for the Allies as the Germans start making their way through. and we want to get that sickle cut action going on at some point. It is difficult to figure out like how exactly some of this is going to go. I think I do need to reroute these guys down this road system. Um, it's I've got to watch out that I don't, screw up how I'm choosing to operate here with the way this is going. But because I could very easily screw this up. I mean, just straight up, very easy for me to screw this up. Um, but so far, so good. Okay, so that was it for the German combats. The German. So the next shit we pull has to, like, if I pull a German shit, not much is going to occur. If I pull an Allied shit, then that's what's going to come up, and we actually get a Allied shit, and we get Allied combat. So this is the first combat shit of the game. We still don't have any engagements, so we're not going to resolve any engagement combats. So this is really now about what can the Allies do to attack or counterattack even the Germans. And to be honest, I'm not sure there is anywhere they're going to want to do that. So let me take myself off camera for a minute. Let me see what is feasible, and we'll come back. Okay. I don't know if this is just a bad choice, but I don't think the Allies have any combats that they can reasonably execute here. Everywhere that I look, the odds are like 1-1, or they're 2-1. But if they're 2-1, it's because it's the Netherlands against the Fallschirmjägers up here, and what's more likely to happen is the Netherlands unit takes a step loss, and we just made it easier for the Germans to continue to push their way through. So I really don't see any combats that can benefit the Allied players. The places where they are adjacent to a German unit is really just bad odds, and they're just likely to weaken themselves. Which, this is great for the Germans. This is what they want, right? They just want it to be you can't even push back. So we're going to go back to the cup and see what else we can get. Now, this next chit could be a German chit. It could be anybody's chit. And we get a German chit, indeed. And we're going to have it be, it has to be a combat. So you're limited to 2 moves, or 2 moves and 2 combats. We use both our moves. So now we have to do combat. I think as the Germans, they're pretty much okay with that. I don't think there's any real issue with that being what they have to do. I'm quite certain they are happy to do some combats next. Now we still can. This is the first time the Germans have had a combat chip. That means on turn 1, everybody is in attack supply. The HQ attack supply units, I think of them as HQs. They're not called that. Doesn't matter. I can attack anywhere and everywhere. And I think there's going to be some decent spots to do just that. So I'm not going to do it all on camera since it'll take a really long time. But here are some obvious places, right? We're going to keep pushing on the Netherlands. Some of these areas maybe are not great terrain-wise, but we probably want to give it a shot. Here to clean up around Eindhoven. Here to clear out the Belgians. Here to continue progressing along the Meuse to Namur. Here to clear out the French. And then maybe some stuff down here to see if we can't begin knocking out the French in some capacity. I might not do it because, again, we want to continue for this to be a holding. A lot of these units, French units, can't even move, so it's a matter of like, do you want to plink them away just to reduce the overall French defense? And that's what it's going to come down to. So I'll probably end up starting from the top and working my way to the bottom. And when I come back, I'll show the aftermath of those combats. Again, it should be pretty, we'll see a slight movement. Because this is a combat round for the Germans, German motorized units, if they force the enemy to retreat far enough or are destroyed, the motorized units can advance 2 hexes. So that might actually matter quite a bit. In some spaces like right here, that might matter. That gets us next to Namur for the next German combat, and so on and so forth. So we'll be right back with the aftermath of the combat round Just a second. Okay, here we are after the combat. So it happened about the way we thought. I actually decided not to attack up here because the odds just were not looking so good. Both sides spent out their air assets for the turn on some combats, and I got a little greedy here, and I took a step loss in AL1, which was not so great. I bit off a little more than I could chew. We did force the Belgians off this river and advanced. We did indeed burst through and are now next to Namur here. We are pushing through over here. We're pushing through down here. Of course, these guys couldn't attack or do anything. I did get a engaged result. We got basically an engaged result, and because the tactical ratings are the same, both sides took a step loss, and that could have actually been much worse because of the Maginot Line. Actually, I better make sure that I read this right. I might not have actually done this right. I better make sure. Fortified lines. Let's see. Fortified lines. 11-7. Oh, built-in garrisons. That's what I forgot about. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I think I did that completely wrong. I probably should not even have attacked that hex, to be honest. So, yes, that I would not have even made that attack because it would have been 8, and we only had 15. I wouldn't even have done that attack, so that's my bad. Sorry, guys. I don't know. Why do I show this stuff on camera? So you know that I'm a human that makes errors. Okay, well, anyway, that was good enough. Everywhere else, it's just a little too dicey. The Maginot Line is indeed difficult. The only advantage I even have right now is that we are, working our way through, or would be. Actually, come to think of it, oh gosh, that means I've been screwing this up, guys. I am so sorry. Down here, it should look like this because there's an inherent garrison that we didn't bust through. So that is my mistake. That is my mistake. I am so sorry. Okay. Well, we fixed it. We're not going to be bursting through down in the south. It felt a little funny that I was doing that. Like, surely something is amiss here, and indeed there is. These numbers in the little hexes there denote an inherent garrison of strength value, and I kind of forgot about that because we've been dealing with the fortified lines up here that don't have a strength value, just sort of march through them. But that is my mistake. That is my bad. Okay. Well, we're going to go to the cup again, and let's see what we get. We get the other German chit. Well, that's kind of interesting because what I think that means is one of these allied chits is not going to get played because in this game, it sounds like you. And the Dark Series handles this a little bit differently in different places where if you get too many of one side, you put the chit back in the cup and you pull until you get the opposite side. And here, it seems like if you don't get the chit just doesn't go back into the cup and you waste it, is what it seems like. But I know that maybe there's some errata. I'll have to double check that, but I think the Allies are just going to lose their last chit. They're going to pull 2 once we're done with this German combat, and then that's going to be it. So they're going to miss their opportunity to do something, whether it's a move or a combat, which, I mean, honestly, in this turn, it maybe doesn't even matter, but we'll have to see. So, okay. Germans get combat again, so I think we're going to see more things along the line of, are we going to break through? Are we going to get through here? I think we're certainly looking at some of the potential for that, depending. Certainly likely going to see some more push here. Unfortunately, they're not in a perfect position to do a lot of this, but generally, I think they're going to be okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay, German combat. I'll take care of those off camera. We'll come back with the aftermath. Okay, here we are after combat. So we've done a little bit of cleanup work. Netherlands getting pushed back. Belgium's getting pushed back. We're now firmly in Namur. Namur, I'm not sure the best way to pronounce that. We are up to Dinant in the edge of the Ardennes at the Meuse. We are, and then that was really it, I think, for all the comments. So we are firmly pushing through. I'm a little worried. Maybe I'm a little too far north. Like I should be cutting down, then go up. But depending on how the Allies end up moving here on this first turn, it could be that they like come up and I've just got this neat little way to kind of like whoop, just come out from underneath them pretty easily if I can get past these units here. So still generally good, I think. So we'll go to the cup and see what comes out. At this point, it is going to be allies, 2 allied chits basically. So we pull one, and it is the first allied movement chit. In terms of the special rules, just as a reminder of how this is going to work, that there are certain restrictions that are in place and where they're going to go. Allied units with a single black star may not move during the first allied move. So this is the first allied move, amazingly enough. So the units with a single black star are not going to move at all. Allied units with 2 black stars are not going to move at all. And let's see. Those with red stars must move their entire, for this round, have to move their entire movement point into the Dyle plan area. And those with the yellow stars have to go towards Antwerpen. So nothing too crazy there. Just again, it's the Allied move. I'm going to have to look around. Most of the Allied units, the French and the British, or rather, I should say, most of the French will not move at all. So we're really going to be moving stuff up here, and that's going to be it. So I'm going to do that off camera, and when we come back, you'll see perhaps the folly of the Allied war plan here. Okay, so here we are after the Allied move, and there's really not a whole lot to talk about here. Generally, there's some units that are shifting up. The Dyle plan line starts really right here in front of Namur and goes up to here, if I'm reading that right. And so, basically, I mean, this German unit, these guys are going to want to come back around and follow, transition down here is what's going to need to happen. It's great we captured that town, but we're going to need to bring some of these other guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to hold it. You can see the British are moving to get into place along here. The French are moving up to get into here. There's a few other units that are supposed to be getting to Antwerpen, but the river lines just increase the cost of movement everywhere. So it's interesting, like the bridges don't even help with the movement cost. So everything, once you start going through the rivers, it just takes a while to get there. And I think I'm playing fairly, and like the Allies are trying to move like efficiently to get there, which seems like the right thing to do here. But that's as much as I can really say for that at the moment. So that's it for the Allied move. They basically are going to get, if I read the rules right, they're going to get 1 more action. I want to make sure that that's the case, but I'm reasonably confident that's it. Single player may not conduct more than 2 movement or 2 combat rounds. You may not conduct 3 action rounds in a row. If a chit draw would cause him to conduct a third, they must draw again until he draws an opponent's action round. If no enemy action round chits remain in the cup, the action phase ends. So I interpret that to mean that this is the last allied chit, whatever it happens to be, which honestly could mean, I'm wondering, I'm wondering if, let's see. I wonder if this means like I, it just makes me wonder, like, can these guys move? Okay, so there is a line in the rules. I'm sorry. If the unit cannot enter on turn 1, it continues moving toward the Dyle plan area on turn 2. And for the most part, they're going to have to continue to stay there until Operation Dynamo. So, yeah, they're not going to get away by drawing, like, if we drew the combat shit, I was worried they wouldn't get a move, and then all of a sudden, these allies just hang out here on turn 2. No, they're going to keep moving um, to the Dial plan even into turn 2. So the last 2 chits are just allied chits. Whichever I pull is what's going to happen. And we do actually get the allied move chit. So we're not going to do an allied combat round. That is just, that's it. It's the end, so I won't play it. But we will have this second uh, allied movement, and we'll see where things get. Okay, I sort of jumped ahead a little bit so we can wrap the video up soon. The allied movement is complete. You can see now the Dial plan, the Dial line is forming quite strong. These poor guys right here are feeling a little iffy, but the French were not feeling confident enough to attempt a mobile attack, and so the Germans don't have to worry too much about that, at least. And then you can see these units are continuing to go up this way where they can. Now, I've already started the end phase. So the end phase, there's some cleanup stuff to do, and I can hit very quickly. We removed disruption markers, which I did. We do bridgehead movement, and I actually forgot that these guys were originally here, but they should have rolled for a bridgehead. They got it, and they could slide over into Sedan. If I'm playing that right, and I think I am. So you can see we are actually kind of at the end of where the Maginot line is at. So it's really important that over the next couple of turns we get over the Meuse. That's really going to be important. But we get over the Meuse and start pushing uh, harder than we have so far. Honestly, we really need to keep going hardcore, as it were. So we'll see how that goes. We have the opportunity to do terror bombing, but terror bombing gives the Allies victory points, and I think I'm going to hold off. I think I'm going to wait until next turn, where we will presumably have the majority of the Netherlands pinned down enough that the terror bombing will cause the Netherlands to surrender. Unfortunately, we didn't get to have the surrender of the Netherlands. The Dutch are still fighting on, so we don't get that. And then we have refugees, so we get to place the remainder of the refugee markers and kind of move them around. There's several that I've placed here, various places, with the idea just to slow the Allies down a little bit, make it harder for them to respond by moving south to stop whatever incursions I have going on over here. I'm not exactly sure the true strategy around the refugee markers, because the German player gets to place them effectively. Um, you just want to slow down the Allies. So where do I want to keep them? Where do I want to keep them bunched up? Well, I would like to keep them around here so that I have the opportunity to come around. But we'll see how that really works once we get underway. And then finally, we have victory point determination. So I think, again, we want to take a look at our victory point chart. I'm just going to try to figure out if the Allies get any victory points. So let's see. 2 victory points for German use of terror bombing. We did not do that. They're not going to get the victory point for the Netherlands not surrendering yet, because that doesn't make sense. Operation Dynamo doesn't matter. 3 victory points per turn. Each turn end phase, the Allied player can trace a line of communication between any one of Boulogne, Calais, or Dunkirk in the west or south edge of the map. Well, we certainly can do that. So that appears to be 3 victory points for the Allies. 3 victory points that a French division occupies Breda and can trace a line of communication. Now, I think this was where I had. We've got an issue. Where is Breda? Which Breda? What are we talking about? I'm not familiar with it. So let me see. I'm just going to punch myself for not looking this up before now. Okay, Breda is actually in the Netherlands. Oh, it's right here. Okay, my bad. Anyway, a French division does not occupy Breda, so they don't get the victory points for that. Okay, we haven't conquered the Netherlands, so that doesn't matter. Okay, PB5 does want to make sure that we have enough on the Maginot Line, a minimum of 5 corps within 2 hexes. Oh yeah, we're way and above good for that. No German panzer divisions have been eliminated. They've not captured a German town or city. And that's it. So effectively, because we still have a clear line of communication to the channel ports, the Allies are getting 3 victory points. So boy, the Germans really want to cut off. I mean, where's the cutoff point for this? Because that's a lot of victory points. Boulogne, Calais, and Dunkirk. Well, okay, so it's these guys up here. So I would have to get to Abbeville. So that's our goal. We need to get to Abbeville. So the Allies don't get victory points. So we've got to go from here through Quinton to Abbeville. It's quite a ways away still. So you can guess that the Allies are at least going to get a fair number of victory points. I mean, I don't know. That worries me. That's a lot of victory points. 3 per turn. That's huge. Okay, so let's see if the Germans get any victory points, huh? 5 for the Netherlands surrender during the end phase of turn 1. Well, that didn't happen, unfortunately. We just didn't quite make it. I don't know what I could have done better to get through faster. Maybe if I had focused my units better. I don't know, but we're not going to get that. No Belgian surrender on turn 1, so nothing there. Okay, nothing there. I'm just looking through the list, and it doesn't look like I'm getting anything yet. We could get some victory points for a Maginot Line breach, but we're just not quite there yet. Yeah, boy, I don't think the Germans get any victory points on turn 1. So the Allies, just by existing, get some victory points. Well, good for you guys then, huh? We'll have to see. I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised it's that many that soon, but that appears to be the way that it rolls. Oh, we also potentially have our. I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. We potentially have our armor attrition. So let me see about that. I'm not sure if this happens on turn 1 or not. Let's see. Okay, starting on turn 1, During each end phase, the German allied players will randomly draw attrition chits from their respective opaque cups. Okay, so we will have to do this. Each turn, the German player continues drawing attrition chits until 2 armor steps are lost. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We've got chits in the cup here. We're going to draw the first one, which is the third Panzer. So I'm going to have to look to see where that guy is, because I have not paid enough attention to know. Okay, so he's going to take a step loss. That sucks. Not my favorite. And now we've got to do another one. I guess I'll place this chit over here. Okay, so then we get the second Panzer. And this poor guy. Ouch. Okay. 2 armor types are lost. Okay, we did do that. So now we have to do the allies. So the allies have the same problem, though they're a little less reliant on their armor being terribly useful. So they've got a similar cup. We're going to draw. And we draw the second DCR. So, second DCR, not the first. I can see the first. Second, okay. Second, so he takes a step loss. And then we'll draw again, because I think these guys need to take 2. Yeah, 2. And we get the third DCR. Okay, and the third is, oh boy, have to find it down here. Okay, so yeah, these ones right in front of where the Germans are about to be pushing through. These armor units are breaking down, so that's not good. I'm not sure. I would have maybe rather had the Germans lose a step off the 6th Panzer Division, since it's further behind the line and less in danger. But there's the rub. Uh-oh. One of the bits of this game where we have the attrition take place. So there you go. Okay, and I want to say that's it for the end phase. Oh no, we have a replacement segment. And the Panzer refit and stuff doesn't apply here yet, so yeah, no allied better defense markers. We're not doing Panzer refits. We do have replacements. Okay. Each German allied infantry replacement step will replace 1 step in a reduced or eliminated corps, 1 eliminated step of infantry, DLC, or cavalry division, or a 2-step division. Okay. Okay, so let me go off camera here and do the replacements, and then we'll come back and we'll see what's going on. Okay, that was actually pretty quick. So the Allies used 2 armor replacements to beef these guys back up. We're totally allowed to do that, leaving them with 1 armor replacement back. We will get more replacements later in the game, but for now we only get so many. So I think the Allies will replace their tanks. They don't have any infantry losses. I don't think that really matter to try to fix at this point. Let's see. no Netherlands, Belgian, or British replacements. So it's really only French replacements. And the French really can't or don't want to spend their replacement points on those little cavalry units. We're going to need them for the infantry, I think. So we're going to save the French infantry replacements, and then the Germans are going to spend one German infantry replacement to flip this unit over here that was injured. Maybe it was this guy, I forget which one it was, that was reduced. We don't have any armor replacements to fix the German armor. The only way that we get our armor steps back is with the Panzer refit mechanic, which we're really not going to worry about right now, or there's not much to worry about right now. So I think that finally brings us to the end of turn one, guys. So I know the first turn video when I do these series is always really long, and it happens to be really long here too, especially for the first time playing a game where I want to make sure I talk through why I'm doing something or how I'm doing something. So I appreciate if you stuck with it the whole time. So let's just quickly for a minute look at the overall strategic situation. I think the Germans have made a pretty strong advance. It's kind of slow in the Netherlands. Their air units have basically secured some bridgeheads, secured some towns and different things, while the German forces themselves are slowly encroaching on the Netherlands units, the Dutch units. But I worry I'm just going so slow there. The swamps really slow things down. The rivers really slow things down as it happens. But the Belgians have been pushed back or have retreated closer to Antwerp, while the Germans are making some progress. They've crossed into main part of Belgium. We've gone beyond Liege. Our front line is basically, here, more or less. And we're still chewing guys through the Ardennes, but we are basically at the Meuse River. So it's going to be, I think turn two is really going to be about breaking through on the opposite side of the river, making sure that we get a clear path of advance through there, and then then what, I don't know. It's so much of this game, it's like an unknown factor to me. It doesn't seem like the Germans have that many units, honestly. So to me it's like, okay, we can make advances, but where are we really going here, or where do we think we're going to get by the time we get to the next turn? And so far the Allies haven't been able to react much at all other than do the pre-programmed movement. So still a wide open game, though I think, again, as the Germans, I think we've done reasonably well at moving through the territory we need to make some gains on. But again, it's like right here. Namur's the hinge, right? We're going to come up to here. We're going to kind of clean this up. We're going to kind of get situated right here. And what we need to be doing is pulling through here. And I'm not sure how well it's going to go. I definitely think the Stukas are going to focus the air right here in turn two. That's where they need to use it. We've gotten into a good place everywhere else. That's where we need to focus next. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed turn one of KCLO 1940, the German Blitzkrieg in the West. Next video will be turn two. So this covered May 10th through the 13th. Next turn will be May 14th through the 17th as part of turn two. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming.